The night Naruto Uzumaki was carried through the gates of the Uchiha district, the village was still counting its dead. Roofs had been repaired with fresh timber, streets had been swept clean, and the blood had been washed from the stones near the broken wall. But Konoha had not healed. People spoke in lowered voices when they saw the bundle in Hiruzen Sarutobi's arms. Some stared with fear, some with pity, and some looked away because the child's small breathing reminded them of the monster that had almost torn the village apart. Fugaku Uchiha received the third Hokage at the entrance of his home with a face carved from restraint. Behind him stood Mikoto, pale from grief and sleeplessness, yet steady enough to bow. She had loved Kushina. That love was the first reason she did not step back when Hiruzen shifted the infant toward her. The second reason came when Naruto opened his eyes, looked at the crest on Fugaku's sleeve, and moved his tiny mouth around a sound no newborn should have been able to shape. It was not clear, and it might have been dismissed as chance, but Mikoto heard it. Hiruzen heard it too. Uchiha, the baby seemed to breathe. The decision that followed was never simple, though later some would pretend it had been. Hiruzen wanted the child hidden in plain sight, protected from the villagers' fear and from foreign spies who would kill for a Jinchuriki. Danzo argued that the Nine Tails belonged under direct command, watched by Root and trained as a weapon from the moment he could walk. Fugaku listened to both men and understood the truth beneath their words. Hiruzen felt guilt. Danzo wanted control. Konoha wanted to survive without admitting what it had done to the son of its dead hero. Mikoto ended the argument by taking Naruto into her arms and holding him with the fierce calm of a mother who had already made her choice. So Naruto became an Uchiha in everything except blood. His paperwork stayed vague, wrapped in seals and political language, but inside the district he slept beneath Mikoto's roof, ate at Fugaku's table, and grew beside Sasuke as a younger brother by months and an older brother in the way he watched the world. The clan did not welcome him all at once. Some elders disliked the idea of the Nine Tails sleeping behind Uchiha walls. Others feared what the village might do if the boy became too attached to them. Mikoto silenced most of that with patience. Fugaku silenced the rest with one cold reminder. The child had been entrusted to their house, and the clan would not shame itself by treating him as a curse. Naruto learned early that love could be real and still surrounded by calculation. Mikoto's hands were gentle when she fixed his collar. Sasuke's annoyance was honest when Naruto beat him at memory games. Fugaku's approval came rarely, but when it came, it carried weight. Outside the district, however, the village watched. Anbu masks appeared on rooftops. Civilian whispers followed him through market streets. He was too young to be told the whole truth, but he remembered too much to need explanations. A lifetime of war, loss, and impossible choices had settled behind his child's eyes, and every morning he woke in a smaller body with an older grief folded inside his chest. He adapted because survival demanded it. He copied Sasuke's posture, copied the way Uchiha children held their shoulders, copied the quiet pride that protected them from insult. He trained with shuriken until the skin split across his fingers. He learned the basic fire release exercises expected of Fugaku's sons, forcing chakra through his lungs with careful discipline, while hiding the cleaner, sharper nature that answered him more easily. Wind was his true element, and he guarded that secret with the same care he gave to every other dangerous truth. To the clan, he became a talented child with unusual focus. To the village, he became less easy to read. Sasuke did not understand why Naruto sometimes stopped during training and looked at the sky, as if listening for an explosion that had not happened yet. He did not understand why Naruto studied patrol routes, council habits, and old clan laws with the patience of a clerk and the attention of a spy. He only knew that Naruto never laughed loudly, never begged for praise, and never made him feel weak for losing. When Sasuke missed a throw, Naruto corrected his wrist. When Sasuke grew angry, Naruto waited until the anger burned down, and then explained the mistake. Their bond formed through rivalry, but it deepened because Naruto treated Sasuke's pride as something worth protecting, rather than breaking. Fugaku noticed. He noticed everything inside his house, even what he chose not to name. Naruto was obedient, but not submissive. Respectful, but not easily led. He asked questions that opened locked doors. Why were Uchiha patrols assigned mostly to the outer districts? Why did police force reports pass through civilian offices before reaching the Hokage? Why did some Anbu watchers move like regular shinobi, while others carried themselves as if they had been trained to erase hesitation? Fugaku answered little. Still, after each question, his gaze lingered on Naruto a moment longer. The first true change came in Naruto's 6th year, when the seal inside him grew restless enough that sleep no longer held. He found himself standing on black water beneath a ceiling lost in darkness. Pipes sweated above him. The air smelled of iron and old rain. At the end of the flooded corridor stood the cage, huge enough to make any child feel like an insect. Behind the bars, red eyes opened, and the pressure of Kurama's hatred rolled through the chamber like heat from a furnace. The fox expected fear. He wanted it. He wanted screaming, bargaining, disgust, and all the small human reactions he had watched for generations. Naruto gave him none of that. He walked through ankle-deep water until he reached the bars, lowered himself to sit cross-legged, and studied the seal with a frown that belonged on an old shinobi inspecting a battlefield. Kurama's lips pulled back from his teeth. He called Naruto an Uchiha brat with a stolen prison in his belly, and promised to tear through the clan first when the seal failed. His voice shook the water in ripples. Naruto listened until the echoes faded. Then he said the masked man had used the Sharingan, not the clan itself. The words were quiet, but they struck harder than fear would have. Kurama's claws scraped stone. Naruto continued before the fox could roar him silent. He described control as a chain, hatred as a weapon others would gladly use, and the seal as a fact neither of them had chosen. He did not ask for power. He did not offer friendship. He only made the situation clear. They were trapped together, and enemies outside the cage would benefit if they wasted years trying to destroy each other. Kurama hated the calm more than he would have hated defiance. The boy smelled like the 4th Hokage's chakra, and lived among the clan whose eyes had humiliated him. Yet there was no worship in Naruto, no disgust either. He looked at Kurama as if the fox were dangerous, proud, wounded, and worth understanding. That irritated Kurama enough to keep him listening. Their first meeting ended with no agreement. The fox retreated into shadow, and Naruto woke with blood on his tongue from biting down in his sleep. The next night, he returned to the cage with questions about chakra flow. Months turned that strange habit into a fragile rhythm. Naruto never came begging. Kurama never stopped insulting him. Still, the conversations changed. Naruto spoke of the village's fear, of the Uchiha's isolation, of how humans built prisons and then blamed the prisoners for hating the walls. Kurama spoke rarely, but his silence became less violent. Sometimes he corrected Naruto's understanding of Biju chakra with a growl. Sometimes he laughed when Naruto described council politics and called humans smaller than insects. Naruto accepted the insult and adjusted his plans anyway. By the time he was 7, the fox no longer tried to crush him with killing intent each time he arrived. The outside world grew more dangerous while that hidden truce formed. The Uchiha district carried a tension even children could feel. Police patrols were questioned more often. Complaints against the clan reached the Hokage's office faster than compliments. Root moved beneath the village like a second set of veins, invisible to most and poisonous to those who noticed. Naruto noticed because he remembered Danzo's hand in too many tragedies. He could not attack the man. He was a child, a Jinchuriki, and an adopted son of the very clan Danzo already feared. A wrong move would prove every accusation before the accusation was even spoken. So, Naruto chose Itachi. The choice was not emotional, though he cared for him. Itachi was the one person positioned close enough to the village and the clan to see both blades before they fell. He was also the only young Uchiha whose loyalty could become a bridge rather than a wall. Naruto waited until he was sure. He watched Itachi return from Anbu duties with eyes too tired for his age. He watched the way Itachi paused whenever Shisui's name came up in adult conversation. He watched how Sasuke brightened under Itachi's attention, and how Fugaku's expectations pressed on his eldest son like armor strapped too tight. The chance came near the river, late in the evening, when Itachi found Naruto skipping stones with the steady precision of target practice. Itachi had not announced himself, yet Naruto spoke as if he had heard him from the path. That alone sharpened Itachi's attention. Naruto did not waste time pretending to be a normal child. He said the clan was being pushed toward a corner, and that Root was sharpening the fear on both sides. He named Danzo's desire plainly: control of the Nine Tails, removal of the Uchiha as an independent force, and a weaponized crisis that would make brutality look necessary. Itachi's face did not change, but his fingers shifted once against the seam of his sleeve. Naruto saw it and pressed forward. He told Itachi that Shisui's eye was the next target, because Kotoama Tsukami was too powerful for Danzo to leave outside his reach. Naruto refused to explain his source. He only asked Itachi to verify one thing with his own eyes. If Shisui went to meet Danzo alone, Itachi had to follow from a distance and trust nothing that looked peaceful. Itachi stared at him for a long time. At last, he asked why Naruto was telling him instead of Fugaku. Naruto answered that Fugaku would prepare for an argument, while Itachi would prepare for betrayal. That answer stayed with Itachi for 3 days. He did not fully believe Naruto, but he could not dismiss him either. The boy had named fears Itachi had barely allowed himself to form. When Shisui quietly told him he planned to speak with Danzo about calming the clan, Itachi felt the warning settle like a cold hand around his ribs. He followed, keeping far enough back to avoid insulting his friend's trust, and close enough to intervene if Naruto's impossible prediction became real. Danzo arrived with 2 visible guards and a bandaged face arranged into weary patience. Shisui stood openly before him, calm but alert. Itachi watched from the high branches and counted what most would miss. 1 root operative beneath a camouflage sheet near the stream, 2 more behind the eastern rocks, another high in the trees with a Senbon launcher, and a 5th presence moving so carefully that even Itachi could only track him by the disturbed flight of insects. It was an ambush. Naruto had been right. Then Danzo turned his head a fraction toward Itachi's hiding place. It was not enough to expose him, but enough to prove he had sensed something wrong. The old man did not spike chakra. His guards did not move. Instead, Danzo changed the future with the ease of a man who had survived by never loving a plan more than victory. He smiled thinly and spoke to Shisui about sacrifice, stability, and the burden carried by those willing to act in darkness. He praised Shisui's talent, then offered him a captain's place en route, saying the village needed Uchiha eyes working from within rather than shouting from the edge. Shisui refused with controlled politeness. He did not accuse Danzo. Danzo did not press. The hidden root operatives remained ready until the meeting ended, and Shisui left the ravine alive, unaware of how close the blade had come. Itachi stayed still, long after everyone disappeared, his mouth dry and his thoughts moving with painful clarity. Danzo had not been innocent. He had adapted. That was worse than a failed attack, because it meant Naruto had not guessed from childish fear. He had understood the shape of Danzo's mind. Itachi went to Naruto before going home. He found him in the training yard, helping Sasuke correct his stance under the lanterns. Naruto looked up once and knew enough from Itachi's eyes to send Sasuke inside. They did not speak for several breaths. Itachi finally admitted that the ambush had been real, though Danzo had turned it into a conversation at the last moment. Naruto absorbed the news with a controlled inhale, as if confirming a wound he had expected. He told Itachi that Danzo would not abandon the plan, only change the angle. From that night on, Itachi stopped treating Naruto as a strange child and began treating him as a dangerous ally. Their next problem was Fugaku. The clan head was no fool, but pride had made many of his choices predictable. Naruto knew that a direct warning from him would only create suspicion. So Itachi carried the message in pieces. He spoke of Root's movements, of Danzo's interest in Shisui, of the way village pressure increased whenever the clan considered restraint. Fugaku listened with the stern silence of a man hearing what he already feared. Mikoto listened too, though she was pouring tea, and her hands slowed when Itachi mentioned Naruto's name. She had watched her adopted son wake from nightmares he never explained. She had seen him count exits in rooms where children should feel safe. Fugaku did not ask Naruto for confession. Instead, he invited him to sit in the study one rain-heavy evening while Sasuke slept against Mikoto in the next room. The paper walls trembled under the weather. Fugaku spoke of duty, not affection, because that was the language he trusted when stakes were high. He asked what a clan should do when the village it helped build began treating it as an enemy. Naruto answered carefully. A clan should avoid becoming the threat its enemies describe, but it should never surrender the people who prove its loyalty meaningless. Fugaku's eyes narrowed slightly. Naruto kept his gaze lowered, respectful but firm. That conversation shaped the ultimatum before the council knew an ultimatum was coming. Danzo forced the issue sooner than expected. He chose a formal meeting with Hiruzen, Homura, Koharu, and Fugaku present, believing procedure would trap the Uchiha leader in public restraint. The room smelled of old wood, ink, and the bitter tea Hiruzen drank when he was tired. Danzo laid out his argument with practiced severity. The 9 tails had been controlled by a Sharingan during the attack. Naruto, living inside the Uchiha district, placed the village's greatest weapon beside the only bloodline known to command it. For the safety of Konoha, the boy had to be removed and placed under direct Hokage supervision. Hiruzen did not agree at once, which was better than Danzo wanted and worse than Fugaku could accept. The 3rd Hokage rubbed his pipe between his fingers, looking older than his title. He said Naruto was a child, not a weapon, and that Mikoto had raised him with care. Danzo answered that sentiment had nearly destroyed the village before. The elders shifted uneasily. They did not like Danzo's hunger, but fear made his logic tempting. Fugaku allowed them to speak until the shape of the room became clear. They expected him to defend himself, to plead, to promise obedience, to accept a smaller cage in exchange for being called loyal. Fugaku did not plead. He rose slowly, every movement measured, and the room quieted, because men who had seen war knew when a blade was leaving its sheath. He said Naruto was Mikoto's son in spirit and under the protection of the Uchiha clan. If Konoha no longer trusted a founding clan to raise its own children, then the alliance between them had already been broken by the village, not by the Uchiha. His voice remained level when he delivered the line that froze even Danzo's visible eye. If anyone tried to take Naruto by force, the Uchiha would leave Konoha. Every household, every shinobi, every child, and Naruto would go with them. For one breath, no one spoke. The threat was too large to answer with pride. Losing the Uchiha police force would cripple internal security overnight. Losing the clan's battle strength would invite pressure from every border. Losing the 9 tails at the same time would turn weakness into disaster. Kumo would test the north. Iwa would count supply lines. Smaller villages would sell information to the highest bidder. Hiruzen understood all of that before Danzo could recover. His face hardened in a way Naruto had rarely seen in memories of the old man. The Hokage ordered the discussion suspended and demanded private negotiations before any further action was taken. Danzo tried to regain control by calling the ultimatum proof of rebellion. Fugaku answered that rebellion required a desire to seize power, while his clan wanted only the right not to have its children stolen. Hiruzen backed that distinction because he had to. For once, Danzo's favorite weapon turned in another hand: necessity. The village could not afford open conflict. The elders knew it. Fugaku knew it. Danzo knew it most of all, and the knowledge tasted like ash. He withdrew from the room with a promise to submit security recommendations, but his silence was sharper than any threat he might have spoken. The negotiations lasted 9 days and bruised everyone involved. Hiruzen visited the Uchiha district twice, a political gesture that made civilians whisper and clan elders sit straighter. Fugaku brought maps, patrol records, complaint ledgers, and a list of reforms that Naruto had helped shape from the shadows through Itachi. The police force would no longer be staffed only by Uchiha. Civilian shinobi and members of smaller clans would be invited in, reducing the image of Uchiha as village jailers, while also making it harder to isolate them. Patrol assignments would rotate more fairly. Reports involving clan disputes would pass through a mixed review, rather than offices loyal to Danzo's allies. The land issue proved harder. The Uchiha had been pushed too far toward the village edge after the Nine Tails attack, under the polite excuse of reconstruction and security. Bringing them closer to the center meant admitting that the old relocation had been punishment. Hiruzen resisted the wording, then yielded on the result. Several compounds near the older district would be restored over time. No one would call it reparations in public. Everyone in the room understood what it was. In return, Fugaku accepted a condition that tasted bitter, but could not be avoided. Naruto would receive a personal Anbu guard appointed by the Hokage, with a written guarantee that no root operative would be included. Naruto accepted that part before Fugaku could refuse on his behalf. It was control, but control with a name and a boundary. Anbu could be watched. Root thrived where no one admitted it existed. He explained as much to Fugaku in private, using the careful tone of a son advising a father, without appearing to command him. Fugaku studied him for a long time, and finally asked whether Naruto understood what it meant to make himself a bargaining point. Naruto answered that he had been one since the night he was born. The only difference now was that his family had chosen to bargain openly rather than let others trade him in the dark. Mikoto heard that answer from the doorway. Later, when the house had quieted and the district lanterns burned low, she found Naruto sitting on the engawa with his knees drawn up, looking toward the Hokage monument. He looked small there, despite the oldness in his eyes. She sat beside him and placed a blanket over his shoulders. She did not ask what he knew or where his strange certainty came from. She told him only that children were not supposed to carry entire clans in their hands. Naruto leaned against her after a long hesitation, and for a few minutes, he let himself breathe like the boy he had never truly been. Inside the seal, Kurama was waiting. The fox had felt the pressure of the council through Naruto's chakra, had tasted the spike of anger when Danzo spoke of ownership. When Naruto appeared before the cage, Kurama laughed low and said humans had nearly started a war over a child and a beast they feared too much to name honestly. Naruto did not defend them. He sat in the water and admitted that fear made people predictable, but love made them dangerous in ways Danzo had failed to measure. Kurama's ears twitched at that. He asked whether Naruto thought the Uchiha loved him enough to leave their village. Naruto looked up at the huge red eyes and said they had already proved it by making the threat where everyone could hear. The fox fell silent. Hatred did not vanish because of one political victory. Kurama still remembered the Sharingan crushing his will, still remembered being dragged through Konoha as a weapon, wearing his own body. Yet the boy in front of him had defended the difference between guilt and bloodline, between enemy and tool. More importantly, the Uchiha had risked their place in the village for a Jinchuriki who was not born to them. Kurama did not praise them. He did not praise Naruto either. He only pushed a thin thread of chakra toward the bars and told the brat not to die before proving whether his cleverness could survive enemies who smiled. By the end of the month, the public story had been polished into something acceptable. The Hokage announced reforms to strengthen unity after years of strain. The Uchiha police force would become a broader village institution. The clan would take part in central security planning again. Naruto's Anbu protection was described as an honor given to the fourth Hokage's legacy, though few people were foolish enough to miss the truth beneath the ceremony. Danzo attended the announcement with his face unreadable. Hiruzen spoke with tired dignity. Fugaku stood beside him, not smiling, but not bowing his head either. For the first time in years, the Uchiha district opened its gates for a village festival without feeling like a fortress pretending to be a neighborhood. The change was cautious. Civilians did not suddenly trust men they had feared yesterday. Uchiha elders did not suddenly forgive suspicion that had cost them dignity. But children ran where adults hesitated. Sasuke dragged Naruto toward a stall selling sweet rice cakes, irritated when Naruto checked the rooftops before accepting one. Shisui appeared beside them with his usual easy grin and stole half of Sasuke's snack before the boy could protest. Itachi watched from a short distance, and the faint softness in his expression made Naruto's chest ache with relief he did not show. Relief, however, was not the same as safety. Naruto knew the massacre had been prevented, but the forces that made it possible had not disappeared. Danzo still commanded Root. The elders still feared instability more than injustice. Hiruzen had acted, but only when the cost of inaction became undeniable. Even within the Uchiha, not everyone agreed with Fugaku's restraint. Some younger shinobi now believed the village had yielded only because it feared them, and fear was a dangerous thing to mistake for respect. Naruto spent the festival listening more than speaking, collecting tones, glances, and fragments of conversation the way other children collected prizes. Itachi joined him near the shrine steps after sunset. They watched lanterns drift across the district street, red and gold light catching on the Uchiha fan crests sewn into festival robes. Itachi said Shisui was alive. The clan was still in Konoha, and Sasuke had gone a full day without demanding extra training. For him, that almost counted as peace. Naruto understood the attempted humor and answered with a small smile. Then Itachi lowered his voice and told him Danzo would not accept humiliation. Naruto said he knew. Men like Danzo did not stop when blocked. They searched for tools sharp enough to cut around the obstacle. Itachi asked how many moves ahead Naruto could see. The question carried no accusation, only the burden of a young man who had chosen to trust something he could not explain. Naruto looked toward Sasuke, who was arguing with Shisui over the stolen rice cake, and admitted that seeing possibilities did not mean controlling them. The future, he remembered, was already broken. That was the point, but it also meant every victory created unknown paths. Itachi accepted this with a slow nod. He did not demand the source. Trust, for him, was not blindness. It was the decision to act with incomplete information because the person beside him had earned that risk. The new Anbu guard arrived 2 days later. Hiruzen chose a small rotating team with clear orders and no root ties. Their captain, a hawk-masked woman with precise movements, introduced herself to Fugaku and Mikoto with formal respect. Naruto memorized her height, dominant hand, breathing pattern, and the way her attention moved first to exits and then to people. She noticed him noticing and inclined her head by the smallest degree. That was acceptable. Naruto preferred guards who understood that protection and surveillance often wore the same mask. At least these masks could be named. Fugaku changed after the ultimatum, though only those close to him saw it. He spent more evenings at home, not because his duties had lessened, but because he understood how close politics had come to taking his family apart. He trained Sasuke with stricter patience, and Naruto with a caution that admitted the boy's mind was not ordinary. Once, during shuriken practice, he asked Naruto why he kept his throws slightly less accurate when others watched. Naruto's hand paused, only briefly, before he answered that people grew nervous when children looked too perfect. Fugaku gave no praise, but the next set of targets he hung was smaller and farther away. Winter settled over Konoha, with thin snow on the roof tiles and a brittle quiet in the council chambers. The reforms began to take root in small, stubborn ways. A Nara joined administrative review for police complaints. 2 Aburame took patrol rotations near the market. An Inuzuka officer loudly complained about Uchiha paperwork, until 3 Uchiha officers complained back, and the argument became normal enough that civilians stopped pretending not to listen. These details mattered. Naruto knew revolutions were not always announced by battle cries. Sometimes they arrived as forms signed by the right people, and habits that made old hatred less convenient. Danzo understood that too, which was why he grew more dangerous. In Root's underground halls, the failure had not been a single lost vote. The Uchiha were no longer isolated enough to crush cleanly. Itachi was harder to pressure while Shisui lived. Fugaku had revealed a political ruthlessness Danzo had underestimated. Worst of all, Naruto remained inside the clan, protected by sentiment, law, and the Hokage's public word. The Jinchuriki should have been the easiest piece to claim. Instead, the boy had become the nail pinning Konoha's weakness to the wall for everyone to see. Hiruzen sensed some of that danger, but lacked proof strong enough to move against his old teammate. He increased oversight, questioned funding, and reassigned a handful of missions away from root channels. Danzo yielded where yielding cost little. He had survived too many administrations to mistake irritation for defeat. When Homura and Koharu urged caution, Hiruzen accepted half measures because open conflict between Hokage and advisor would shake a village still recovering from one crisis. Naruto watched this from the edges and understood the old man's flaw with painful clarity. Hiruzen wanted peace so badly that he kept leaving knives on the table as long as no one was bleeding at that exact moment. Spring came. Sasuke turned louder in his ambitions, determined to surpass Itachi, and increasingly annoyed that Naruto kept matching him without seeming excited about it. Shisui visited often, teasing both boys and keeping Itachi from sinking too deep into Amber's silence. Mikoto laughed more in those months than she had since the Nine-Tails attack, though the laughter never fully erased the careful way she looked at the village beyond the district gates. Fugaku's position within the clan strengthened. The extremists had lost their easiest argument because the ultimatum had achieved results without war. For a brief season, the impossible future Naruto had wanted began to look almost real. That was when Naruto made his first mistake. He allowed himself to measure victory by what had not happened. No massacre, no stolen eye, no brother forced to slaughter brother. The absence of disaster felt like proof, and proof tempted even careful minds into rest. Kurama sensed the shift and mocked him for it, warning that humans with broken pride became creative. Naruto accepted the warning, but a part of him still looked at Sasuke training under Fugaku's eye, at Itachi speaking with Shisui beneath the trees, at Mikoto carrying tea into the yard, and believed he had bought them time enough to prepare for whatever came next. Far beneath that fragile peace, Danzo stood in a chamber lit by oil lamps and sealed from every official map of Konoha. A broken cane lay in splinters at his feet. Root agents knelt along the walls, silent as carved stone. Reports rested on the table before him. Police reforms proceeding. Uchiha relocation approved in stages. Naruto's guard confirmed free of root influence. Shisui active. Itachi unreliable as a pressure point. Danzo read each line once, then let the paper curl in his fist. The Uchiha had become too clever. Fugaku would not have found that strategy alone. Someone had taught him where to place the blade. A soft laugh came from the edge of the lamplight. The root agents did not move, though several stiffened. The pale figure stepping from the darkness looked almost boneless in the way he carried himself, with yellow eyes that treated the room as a laboratory rather than a meeting place. Orochimaru smiled, as if he had already tasted the fear hidden under Danzo's discipline. Danzo did not turn fully toward him. He said the clan's unity had to be broken from within, and that certain eyes had become too troublesome to leave in loyal skulls. Orochimaru's smile widened. He asked whether he was finally permitted to hunt the Sharingan. Danzo's bandaged hand tightened over the head of his remaining cane. Permission was too generous a word, and both men knew it. What Danzo offered was opportunity wrapped in secrecy, a path into the heart of a clan that believed it had forced the village to respect its boundaries. Above them, Konoha slept under the peace Naruto had dragged into existence with patience, risk, and borrowed time. Below, in the dark, two predators began discussing how best to make that peace bleed. The peace Naruto had forced into existence did not break in one loud moment. It wore down slowly, through years of meetings, reassigned patrols, polite reports, and smiles that arrived too late to be trusted. By the time he was 12, the Uchiha district looked less like a sealed quarter and more like a living part of Konoha again. Children from other clans crossed its streets during festivals. Mixed patrols argued over routes and paperwork. The police force no longer carried the full weight of the village's resentment. From a distance, it looked like progress. Naruto knew better than to call it safety, but he had allowed himself to believe in time. The massacre had not happened. Shisui still lived. Itachi had not become the blade that cut his own family apart. Fugaku stood taller in council meetings, and even Hiruzen had learned to push back when Danzo pressed too openly. The future Naruto remembered had been cracked in half. And for a while, he mistook the crack for control. Konoha announced the Spring Unity Tournament as a harmless political gesture. The official purpose was to strengthen cooperation between young shinobi from different clans and graduating academy classes. The real purpose was more practical. Hiruzen wanted villagers to see Uchiha children compete beside Aburame, Inuzuka, Hyuga, Nara, and civilian-born students, so Old Fear would have fewer shadows to hide in. Fugaku accepted because refusing would look like pride. Naruto accepted because public rituals mattered, even when they were shallow. Sasuke hated the word unity almost as much as he loved the chance to prove himself. At 12, he had grown sharper in every sense. His Sharingan had awakened during a border mission scare the year before, when a wounded courier nearly died beside him, and since then he had trained with the hunger of someone trying to catch 3 older brothers at once: Itachi, Shisui, and Naruto. He still called Naruto annoying when Naruto corrected his stance. He still watched for Naruto's approval after a clean strike. Fugaku watched them both, with quiet pride he rarely voiced. He had become more careful since the ultimatum, but not softer. The village had yielded to him once, because he had shown he could make loss expensive. That kind of victory did not create friends. It created people who waited for him to stumble. He knew Danzo had gone silent in the wrong way. He knew Root had not disappeared because Hiruzen signed a restriction. Still, a clan head could not live forever with his hand on the sword. Some days he had to stand in public and let his sons be children. Danzo chose that day because everyone wanted it to be ordinary. He had spent years studying the reforms Naruto helped build. Mixed patrols made open movement harder, but they also made responsibility blurry. ANBU rotated near Naruto, yet tournament security required extra masks across the village. The Uchiha district was watched, but the tournament grounds were village property, maintained by workers, SEAL teams, and safety inspectors. Root did not need to march through the front gate. It only needed to become part of the ground beneath everyone's feet. Orochimaru entered Konoha before dawn, wearing another man's face and a stolen maintenance uniform. Root had prepared the path with frightening patience. A storage room seal had been altered 3 months earlier. 2 barrier posts had been replaced during routine repairs. A third anchor had been hidden under a spectator platform reserved for senior clan representatives. The last anchor was carried inside a hollow cane by a Root operative posing as an old administrative aide. None of these pieces looked like an attack. Together, they formed a cage. Naruto noticed small things that morning and dismissed them for reasons that later made him sick. A patrol route shifted by 6 minutes. A supply team moved too quickly near the eastern stairs. One of the tournament officials smelled faintly of medical alcohol beneath his cologne. Any other day, Naruto would have followed those details until they bled truth. But his memory told him there would be no Konoha crush now. Orochimaru had not killed the Kazekage in this timeline. Suna had no reason to join a public invasion. The great disaster he remembered had been cut from the future. Kurama stirred when Naruto took his place near the lower arena wall. The fox had grown used to Naruto's vigilance and noticed when it loosened. Inside the seal, his warning came as a rough pressure against Naruto's ribs, more irritation than fear. Naruto answered silently that he was watching. Kurama did not believe him, and years later, Naruto would remember that disbelief with more pain than anger. The fox had sensed the oldest trap of all, a survivor trusting the absence of one disaster so much that he missed the shape of another. The tournament began cleanly. Sasuke won his first match against an Inuzuka boy by using wire and shadowed movement rather than brute force, which made Fugaku's eyes narrow in approval. Naruto defeated a Hyuga branch student by giving ground until the boy overextended, then breaking his rhythm with a wind-enhanced step too subtle for most spectators to recognize. Itachi stood with the ANBU detail near the upper walkway, officially present as security. Shisui lounged close to the clan seats, smiling like a lazy older cousin, while his eyes measured every rooftop. By noon, the grounds had relaxed. Vendors called from the edges of the field. Children argued over skewers. Hiruzen sat beneath the central awning with the elders nearby, and Danzo stood slightly behind him, face hidden in its usual severity. Fugaku came down from the clan platform to speak with Sasuke before the next match. Naruto saw the gesture and felt a small warmth he did not have time to examine. Fugaku adjusted Sasuke's sleeve, said something that made Sasuke's mouth tighten in embarrassed pride, and rested one hand briefly on his son's shoulder. Then, the air changed. It did not explode at first. It tightened. 4 points around Fugaku and Sasuke flashed violet-white, and the space between them rose into a burning square wall before most people understood what they were seeing. The barrier swallowed the center of the arena, with Fugaku and Sasuke trapped inside. 2 tournament officials dropped their disguises and slammed their palms onto seal plates. A 3rd root operative died instantly when Shisui's kunai reached his throat, but the seal had already taken hold. The 4th anchor locked from beneath the platform near Danzo's feet. Naruto moved before the screaming started. Wind chakra gathered under his soles as he crossed half the arena in a blur. But the barrier rejected him with a blast of heat that tore skin from his forearm. His Anbu guard caught up a heartbeat later, barking orders to evacuate the crowd and locate the anchors. Itachi vanished from the upper walkway. Shisui struck the nearest seal post with a genjutsu-laced blade and found the chakra flow too deep to break by force. Whoever designed this had not planned to hold an army for hours. They had planned to hold one family for minutes. Inside the barrier, Orochimaru let his disguise melt from his face. The stolen skin sagged and slipped away, revealing pale features and eyes bright with amusement. Sasuke froze for half a breath, then raised his kunai with both hands. Fugaku stepped in front of him before fear could become motion. He did not waste words asking how Orochimaru had entered the village. The answer was outside the barrier, standing among counselors and pretending to be shocked. Orochimaru greeted Fugaku with soft courtesy, as if they had met by appointment. He praised the Uchiha clan's resilience, admired Sasuke's young Sharingan, and said Konoha had always been careless with rare things. Fugaku answered with fire. A dense stream of flame filled the enclosed space, forcing Orochimaru to bend backward with inhuman ease, as snakes spilled from his sleeves and burned in blackening coils. The heat inside the barrier doubled, but Fugaku had chosen the jutsu carefully. He drove Orochimaru toward the far edge, away from Sasuke, while keeping enough space to move. Orochimaru did not fight like a man trying to win quickly. He fought like a scientist, testing how much pressure a specimen could take before it revealed something valuable. He sent snakes low through the dust to bite at Fugaku's ankles, then launched senbon coated in a clear poison towards Sasuke when Fugaku's eyes tracked the movement. Fugaku intercepted the needles with a spinning fan of kunai and wire, but the motion cost him ground. Orochimaru smiled when Sasuke's Sharingan followed the wire pattern. The boy was learning, even while terrified. He used the narrow field as a weapon, spreading fire across the ground in controlled lines that cut off Orochimaru's angles. The flames forced the Sannin into predictable paths. When Orochimaru leapt, Fugaku's shuriken met him midair, each blade tied to wire fine enough to vanish in the heat haze. For one clean moment, Orochimaru's limbs were caught. Fugaku's eyes sharpened, and a genjutsu snapped through the wires like a pulse. Orochimaru's body stiffened. Sasuke saw the opening and moved without waiting. He threw 2 shuriken at Orochimaru's throat, then rushed in with a lightning-coated kunai, the small Chidori variant Naruto had helped him shape in secret practice. It was brave and almost fatal. Orochimaru's neck stretched sideways in a sickening bend, avoiding the shuriken, while his mouth opened wider than any human mouth should. A second blade slid out from his throat, gripped by a snake, and shot towards Sasuke's chest. Fugaku broke his own genjutsu to save him. He yanked Sasuke back by the collar and took a shallow cut across the ribs that immediately darkened around the edges. Poison. Fugaku felt his muscles tighten and forced chakra through the wound to slow the spread. His face betrayed nothing, but Sasuke saw the slight drag in his father's next step. Orochimaru saw it too. His smile grew calmer. Now he had the rhythm he wanted. Outside, Naruto pressed his burned palm against the barrier and read the flow. It was not the 4 violet flames he remembered from the Chunin exam, but a root-modified version built for secrecy and speed. The anchors fed each other through buried seals. Breaking one would weaken the cage. Breaking two would collapse it. Shisui had already killed one anchor guard, but the seal plate remained active under the ground. Itachi appeared near Naruto, with blood on his sleeve that was not his own, and said the eastern post had a dead man lock. Naruto understood at once. Root had designed the barrier, so even killing the operators would not free the victims quickly. They worked anyway. Naruto cut into the earth with compressed wind, not enough to reveal his full nature to the whole crowd, but enough for Itachi and Shisui to understand. Shisui used a flicker step to reach the second anchor, while Itachi locked an escaping root operative in genjutsu and forced him to reveal the seal sequence. The man bit through his own tongue before speaking the final line. Itachi's face hardened, and Naruto felt Kurama's chakra rising against his control. Minutes. They needed minutes they did not have. Inside, Fugaku fought like the head of a war clan. Poison slowed his left side, so he shifted his stance and made Orochimaru believe the weakness was worse than it was. When the Sannin lunged, Fugaku caught his wrist, drove a knee into his ribs, and set a fire seal against his sleeve. The explosion threw Orochimaru across the enclosure and tore one arm nearly apart. For the first time, the amusement in Orochimaru's eyes thinned. Fugaku advanced, breathing hard, Sharingan spinning as he forced another genjutsu into the small space between their gazes. Orochimaru shed the ruined body like a snake leaving old skin. The new form burst from the damaged mouth in a wet, violent motion, pale and unmarked, while the burning shell collapsed at Fugaku's feet. Sasuke gagged, but kept his stance. Fugaku's jaw tightened. He had bought damage with effort, and Orochimaru had paid it off with a technique that turned pain into inconvenience. The Sannin flicked his fingers, and the Kusanagi blade slid fully into his hand, bright and thin as a line of cold moonlight. The next exchange was faster. Orochimaru stopped testing and began cutting. Fugaku parried with kunai, wire, and fire bursts, but Kusanagi moved in impossible extensions, bending around guards and striking from angles that forced him to protect Sasuke more than himself. Sasuke tried to shift behind his father to reduce the burden. Orochimaru noticed and attacked the space Sasuke was about to enter before Sasuke reached it. The boy's Sharingan widened. He had been read completely. Fugaku made his final decision in that instant. He drove Sasuke backward with a hard shove and turned into the line of the blade. Orochimaru's true strike had never been meant for Fugaku's heart. It had been aimed through the father and into the son, using Fugaku's protection as the path. Fugaku twisted enough to change the angle. Kusanagi pierced him through the chest instead of continuing into Sasuke. His hand clamped around the blade, and blood ran down his wrist onto the steel. Sasuke screamed his father's name with a voice that broke halfway through. Fugaku used the last strength in his fingers to hold the sword in place, so Orochimaru could not pull it free for another strike. His eyes found Sasuke's, and for a moment, the arena, the fire, and the monster in front of them seemed to narrow to the distance between father and son. Fugaku told him to live. The words were rough, small, and enough to tear something open inside Sasuke that had never been meant to open in a child. The Mangekyo came like a wound, blooming in both eyes. Sasuke's chakra changed so violently that even Naruto felt it through the barrier. Black flame burst along the Kusanagi blade where Fugaku's blood touched it, racing toward Orochimaru's hand. The Sannin released the weapon and severed his own burning fingers before the fire could climb farther. His expression shifted from satisfaction to hunger. He had come for Sharingan, But this was beyond what he had expected. A child Mangekyo, awakened in fresh grief, stood trembling before him. The barrier cracked as Naruto and Itachi broke the first anchor. Shisui shattered the second a breath later, using a stolen root seal tag turned against its own circuit. Orochimaru glanced toward the failing wall and made the calculation quickly. Fugaku was dead. Sasuke's eyes had awakened. Naruto was almost inside. Itachi and Shisui were too close. Greed urged him to stay, but survival had kept him alive longer than pride ever could. He took one last look at Sasuke and promised, in a voice low enough that only the boy and his dying father heard it, that those eyes would belong to him one day. When the barrier collapsed, Naruto reached Fugaku before the body finished falling. He caught him with both arms, but he already knew. The wound was too deep, the poison too fast, the heartbeat already gone. Sasuke stood a few steps away, with Mangekyo spinning, and tears cutting clean lines through soot on his face. The black flames still burned along the abandoned blade, eating metal as if it were dry paper. Naruto looked from the flames to the rooftops where Orochimaru had vanished, and understood the full shape of his failure. Konoha did what villages always did after a disaster. It cleaned the ground, counted witnesses, sealed reports, and argued about blame before the dead were cold. Fugaku's funeral filled the Uchiha district from gate to shrine. Hiruzen attended in formal robes and looked as if each step aged him another year. Danzo came too, standing far enough back to appear respectful and close enough to be seen. Sasuke did not look at him during the ceremony. That frightened Naruto more than if he had screamed. Mikoto stood beside the funeral altar, with her hands folded so tightly her knuckles lost color. She did not collapse. She did not perform grief for the village. When the incense smoke drifted toward her, she closed her eyes for a few seconds and then opened them again, steady enough to receive condolences from people who had helped build the conditions that killed her husband. Naruto wanted to stand between her and all of them. Instead, he stood beside Sasuke, because Sasuke's chakra kept flaring in unstable waves that made every shinobi nearby shift their weight. The truth was visible to anyone willing to see it. Orochimaru could not have walked into the tournament grounds, activated a root-modified barrier, struck at Fugaku, and escaped through a sealed village by luck. Sasuke saw that with brutal clarity. Grief stripped away every polite explanation adults tried to place in front of him. Patrols had been moved. Security seals had been altered. Root operatives had been present under false names. Danzo's anchor point had activated beneath the platform where he stood. Each fact was a stone, and Sasuke stacked them into one conclusion. The Council of Jonin met 3 days after the funeral. Hiruzen wanted a controlled inquiry. Fugaku's supporters wanted arrests. The elders wanted quiet. Naruto attended only because his status as Jinchuriki and adopted Uchiha made excluding him more dangerous than allowing him to sit under guard. Itachi stood behind the council rail, face pale and unreadable. Shisui stood near Mikoto. Sasuke sat with his head lowered until Danzo began speaking about the need to prevent emotional retaliation from destabilizing the village. Sasuke moved faster than most people in the room expected. His chair cracked backward, and a black-edged flicker of chakra gathered around his hand as he crossed the space toward Danzo. Naruto caught his shoulder at the same moment Shisui caught his wrist. The floor split under Sasuke's foot. For one terrible second, the Mangekyo turned toward Danzo in full view of the council. Sasuke accused him of opening the village to Orochimaru. He accused him of hiding behind Konoha while using enemies to murder loyal shinobi. His voice shook, but the accusation was clear. Danzo did not defend himself like an innocent man. He defended himself like a politician. He looked past Sasuke to Hiruzen and said Fugaku was dead, and already the Uchiha heir was ready to attack a village elder in a council chamber. He asked how many more would follow if grief was allowed to become policy. The words were poison because they used Sasuke's real pain as proof of Danzo's false argument. Several Jonin looked away. Hiruzen ordered Sasuke restrained gently, which satisfied no one. Naruto felt the room tilt toward disaster, one frightened glance at a time. The inquiry began and died in the same week. Root denied involvement. The captured operators had suicide seals that destroyed memory pathways before Yamanaka interrogation could reach anything useful. Documents vanished. Patrol logs contradicted each other. Hiruzen demanded answers from Danzo behind closed doors and emerged with less than the truth. He suspended certain root operations, reassigned several command channels, and promised continued investigation. It was not nothing, but it was not justice. To the Uchiha, that difference mattered more than any speech about patience. The clan split around the wound. Some wanted open retaliation, not because they believed they could win cleanly, but because fear had become unbearable. Others, especially those with children, wanted protection at any cost. Danzo's agents reached the frightened ones quietly. Root offered secrecy, training, and shelter from the next Orochimaru. The offer was obscene, but grief makes cages look like walls if someone paints them with the word safety. A handful of Uchiha accepted, then a few more. Each departure cut the clan deeper than an enemy blade. Naruto tried to hold the center with Itachi and Shisui, but there was no center left strong enough to bear the weight. Fugaku had been the political spine of the clan. Mikoto had moral authority, yet she could not command warriors who now saw every compromise as the road that led to her husband's body. Sasuke's Mangekyo made him a symbol before he was old enough to understand the burden. Every angry Uchiha looked at his eyes and saw revenge. Every frightened Konoha official looked at the same eyes and saw Danzo's warning made flesh. Mikoto made her decision after a long night in the room where Fugaku used to keep clan records. Naruto found her there before dawn, surrounded by scrolls, maps, and old correspondence with safe houses beyond Fire Country. She looked tired in a way sleep could not repair. She told Naruto that Sasuke could not stay in Konoha. Orochimaru wanted him. The clan would use him if grief kept sharpening. A mother did not need a council vote to understand when a village had become dangerous to her child. Shisui agreed before she asked. He had already prepared routes that avoided standard patrol roads and sensor posts Root was likely to monitor. He would go with Mikoto and Sasuke, not as a deserter chasing anger, but as a shield. His presence made pursuit costly. It also made the departure impossible to dismiss as a frightened widow running with a traumatized boy. One of the strongest Uchiha alive was choosing exile because Konoha could no longer be trusted to protect the family it had nearly destroyed. Naruto wanted to go with them so badly that the desire felt physical, like fingers hooked under his ribs. He knew the routes. He knew how to disappear. With Kurama's chakra and his own knowledge, he could help them survive almost anywhere. But the moment the Nine Tails vanished from Konoha with the Uchiha, Danzo would have the war he had been trying to create for years. Hiruzen would be forced to name them an S-rank threat. Hunter squads would follow. Other villages would learn that Konoha had lost both a Jinchuriki and a broken Uchiha faction. The world would smell weakness. So Naruto stayed. He explained it to Sasuke in the courtyard behind the house, where they had trained since childhood. Sasuke's eyes were dark again, the Mangekyo hidden but never far from the surface. He called Naruto a coward at first, because pain needed a target, and Naruto was the only person safe enough to strike. Naruto let the word land. Then he told Sasuke the truth. His body was a leash around Konoha's throat. As long as he remained, Hiruzen could argue that Mikoto's group was a political exile, not a Jinchuriki theft. As long as he remained, the village could pretend the situation was contained. Sasuke understood before he forgave. That made it worse. His anger faltered, leaving a boy who had watched his father die and was now being asked to leave another brother behind. Mikoto embraced Naruto in the entry hall before sunrise, her hands firm at the back of his head, the way they had been when he was small. She told him to eat properly, to sleep when he could, and to stop pretending burns did not hurt. The ordinary shape of the advice almost broke him. He held on until her sleeve wrinkled in his fist. He had spent the night arranging something with Hiruzen that looked official enough to slow pursuit and vague enough to keep Danzo guessing. When he found Naruto near the gate, his face carried the calm of a man walking into a grave he had chosen. He said he would enter Root, not as Danzo's servant, but as eyes in the dark. Danzo wanted leverage over the Uchiha, and Itachi would let him believe he had gained it. Naruto knew the cost before Itachi finished speaking. Root did not accept half measures. It would stain everything it touched. Naruto asked him not to do it, though he already knew Itachi would. Itachi answered by placing 2 fingers lightly against Naruto's forehead, the old gesture he used with Sasuke when delaying a promise. This time, he did not smile. He said he would protect Naruto inside Konoha, and Naruto would protect the reason they endured it. Then he stepped back, before either of them could say anything that made the choice harder. When Mikoto, Sasuke, and Shisui left through the eastern service gate under a thin official escort, Naruto stood still until they disappeared beyond the trees. Danzo watched the departure through 3 layers of reports and 1 hidden observer. To Hiruzen, it was a temporary relocation for safety, a painful compromise until the investigation could calm the clan. To the Uchiha who left, it was exile. To Danzo, it was a board finally arranged to his liking. Fugaku was dead. The clan had fractured. Sasuke's eyes had awakened, but were no longer inside the village, where Hiruzen could shield him directly. Itachi had offered himself to Root, dressed as sacrifice and loyalty. Orochimaru, however, remained a problem. The Sannin knew too much. He knew Root had opened the gate. He knew the barrier pattern. He knew Danzo had arranged the conditions for Fugaku's murder. Such men did not stay useful after they became witnesses. Danzo solved that problem by feeding hunger. A route reached Orochimaru through a broker who believed he had stolen it from a careless Root courier. The information described Mikoto's convoy, the size of the escort, and Sasuke's unstable Mangekyo. It did not mention Shisui. Another fragment reached Itachi through a Root channel designed to look accidental. Danzo knew Itachi would follow. Orochimaru took the bait because genius did not protect a man from obsession. He tracked the convoy 2 days beyond Konoha, deep in a forest where the trees grew close enough to block moonlight. He expected a widow, a wounded boy, and perhaps 2 loyal guards. Instead, the forest felt wrong the moment he entered it. Leaves shifted where no wind passed. Birdsong stopped too evenly. A green-eyed crow watched him from a branch and did not blink. Orochimaru smiled despite the warning. If Shisui was present, the prize had only grown richer. Snakes burst through the leaf litter around the convoy, fangs aimed at ankles and horses. Shisui moved before the escort could panic, his body flickering between targets so quickly that severed snakes fell in a ring around Mikoto and Sasuke. Sasuke drew his blade with shaking hands, not from fear of Orochimaru, but from the effort of keeping the Mangekyo buried until he chose to use it. Mikoto stepped behind him, kunai ready, her face calm in the moonlight. Orochimaru appeared on a branch above them and praised the welcome. Shisui answered with a smile that did not reach his eyes, and invited him to come closer if he wanted to keep speaking. The Sannin sent a wave of snakes instead. They came in layers, some real, some chakra constructs, some carrying poison mist that spread low across the ground. Shisui used windmill shuriken to break the first wave, and a genjutsu pulse to turn the second against itself. Sasuke ignited the mist with a fireball before it reached the escort. The explosion lit the forest red. Orochimaru used the light to strike from behind. His neck stretched through the smoke, Kusanagi flashing towards Sasuke's spine. A black blur intercepted the blade. Itachi stood between them, Anbu armor half hidden beneath a dark cloak, Sharingan already turning. For one moment, no one moved. Orochimaru looked at Itachi, then at Shisui, then at Sasuke's uncovered eyes. Understanding entered his expression with almost tender amusement. Danzo had sold him to the Uchiha and trusted their hatred to finish the work. Itachi did not give him time to enjoy the realization. Tsukuyomi struck like a door closing on the world. Orochimaru's pupils tightened as the genjutsu seized his senses, but the Sannin had studied Uchiha eyes for years and prepared ugly answers. He bit through his own tongue, flooded his body with pain, and forced a shedding technique that dragged part of his mind out of the illusion with the new flesh. He staggered free, smiling through blood. Then, Shisui's chakra pressed in from the side, not the full forbidden command Danzo feared, but a refined genjutsu that bent perception just enough to make every escape route appear half a step late. The battle became a cage built from timing. Shisui denied distance. Itachi denied clarity. Sasuke denied safety. Orochimaru still nearly escaped twice. He replaced himself with snakes when Itachi's fire consumed a body. He buried explosive tags inside discarded skins. He sent a white serpent under the roots toward Mikoto, forcing Sasuke to choose between pursuit and protection. Sasuke chose protection, cutting the serpent apart with a lightning blade that shook in his grip. Orochimaru laughed from the shadows and said Fugaku had trained a loyal son, not a killer. That broke the last restraint. Sasuke's Mangekyo opened fully, and the forest seemed to recoil from the chakra pouring out of him. Black flames appeared where his gaze fixed, not as a clean master technique, but as a violent eruption that ate bark, moss, snakes, and shadow alike. Orochimaru twisted away, losing half his sleeve and the skin beneath it. Itachi caught the opening with a second genjutsu, shorter than Tsukuyomi, but sharper, while Shisui drove a blade through Orochimaru's shoulder and pinned him to the trunk behind him. Orochimaru tried one final shedding, his jaw unhinged. A new body began to force itself out, slick and pale, already turning toward the ground. Sasuke reached him before the motion finished. Lightning screamed in his hand, rougher than Chidori should have been. Fed by grief and years of training under people who had all tried to teach him control, he drove the blade through the emerging body and into the old one behind it. For an instant, Orochimaru's many lives seemed to overlap in one horrible shudder. The black flames followed. Sasuke did not look away until both bodies burned. Itachi sealed the remains with a fire containment scroll, then burned the scroll too. Shisui checked the forest for hidden snakes, clones, curse seals, anything that could crawl away and become a future enemy. They found 3 fragments of chakra, trying to flee through small white serpents. Shisui trapped 2 in genjutsu, long enough for Itachi to destroy them. Sasuke crushed the last beneath his heel, his face empty and young at the same time. When it was done, the forest smelled of ash and poison. Orochimaru, one of the 3 Sannin, had died far from any battlefield that would record his name properly. Sasuke stood over the scorched ground and did not look satisfied. Revenge had not restored Fugaku's voice, had not repaired the courtyard, had not made Konoha safe enough to return to. Mikoto approached and placed a hand on his shoulder. He leaned into it for only a second, before straightening. Itachi watched that small movement as if it hurt more than the fight. The brothers spoke apart from the others before dawn. Sasuke asked if Itachi was coming with them, now that Orochimaru was dead. Itachi said he could not. Danzo's trap had killed the snake, but the hand that set it still held Konoha from beneath. If Itachi abandoned route immediately, Danzo would know he had lost every thread and might move against Naruto. Sasuke's eyes hardened at Naruto's name. He hated the answer because it made sense. Itachi promised nothing grand. He only told Sasuke to protect their mother and listen to Shisui when anger made the road narrow. A crow reached Naruto the next evening. It landed on the edge of his window, with one black feather marked by a seal only he and Itachi knew. The message was brief. Orochimaru was dead. Sasuke had survived. Mikoto and Shisui were continuing east. Itachi was returning to route. Naruto read it 3 times, then burned it over a candle flame. Relief came first, and hit so hard he had to sit down. Grief followed, because every line of good news proved how much had been lost to earn it. Danzo received his report in a sealed underground office. Orochimaru eliminated. Uchiha convoy escaped. Shisui confirmed in exile. Itachi returned to route without public deviation. Sasuke's Mangekyo confirmed unstable, but powerful. Danzo let the report rest on his desk, and allowed himself the smallest curve of satisfaction. He had not gained the eyes, but he had removed the witness. Fugaku was dead. The clan was broken into loyalists, exiles, and frightened recruits. Hiruzen was trapped in investigations that led nowhere. Naruto remained in Konoha, guarded by men Danzo could not command, yet surrounded by a village Danzo could still poison. Years passed, and Konoha learned to live with a wound it refused to name. Naruto grew into a shinobi people trusted on missions and avoided in quiet hallways. He was too calm under pressure, too careful with words, too willing to look directly at things adults preferred to soften. His fire release improved because an Uchiha son was expected to keep that mask polished. His wind release became deadly in private. With Kurama, the old truce deepened into something harder to define. The fox still mocked him, but he lent chakra in controlled threads during training, then snarled when Naruto thanked him. Itachi's messages came rarely. Root watched him, so every contact had to look like accident, mission debris, or meaningless animal movement. Naruto built a map from fragments. Which root cells disappeared? Which agents were moved away from Danzo's direct command? Which young shinobi had been saved from recruitment by quiet warnings reaching their families? Itachi was bleeding Danzo slowly from inside the dark. The work cost him. Naruto saw it in the few times their paths crossed in public. Itachi's body grew thinner. His eyes carried fatigue deeper than sleeplessness. Neither of them spoke like brothers where others could hear. Hiruzen aged into regret. He never stopped trying to hold the village together. But trying was not the same as cutting rot from the root. The Uchiha exiles became a rumor, then warning, then ghost story. Some said Shisui had built a hidden settlement. Some said Sasuke hunted root agents across borders. Some said Mikoto kept a list of every name tied to Fugaku's death. Naruto did not confirm or deny any of it. The less Konoha knew, the safer they were. The less Naruto knew officially, the less Danzo could use him to find them. When Naruto was 16, Jiraiya returned to Konoha under a rain-heavy sky and a pack full of reports no one else had managed to gather. He had expected to find Minato's son guarded, angry, perhaps lonely in a loud and foolish way neglected boys often became. The reports he had received over the years contradicted each other. Some called Naruto a model shinobi, some called him unsettling. One drunken merchant from Tanzaku had described him as an Uchiha with blonde hair and the eyes of a retired executioner. Jiraiya had laughed at that until he met the boy. Naruto found him first on the old training ground near the river. Jiraiya was examining a seal mark left on a broken stone when a kunai touched the bark beside his head from 40 paces away. Not thrown to kill, thrown to announce that the thrower could have chosen differently. Jiraiya turned and saw a tall, lean teenager standing beneath the trees, blonde hair tied back, dark Uchiha training clothes, marked by no clan crest except a small fan stitched at the shoulder. Naruto bowed with correct respect and said the village had been expecting him for 3 days. Jiraiya grinned out of habit and tried to take control of the meeting with noise. It did not work. Naruto answered the jokes politely, ignored the bait, and guided the conversation toward the missing Min networks Jiraiya had been tracking. After 10 minutes, Jiraiya stopped pretending he was speaking to a child. After 20, he asked Naruto to travel with him. He said the world was moving. Akatsuki's name appeared in too many places, and a Jinchuriki needed training beyond Konoha's walls. Naruto refused. He did not do it proudly. He explained that leaving Konoha for years would hand Danzo too much space, and the village was weakest, where it believed itself most secure. His place was inside the pressure point. Jiraiya argued that strength mattered more than politics when monsters came hunting. Naruto answered that monsters often arrived because politics opened the gate. The words landed harder than Jiraiya expected. He had heard enough of Fugaku's death to understand the wound beneath them. Then Naruto gave him the truth in the only form he could safely offer: analysis. He spoke of missing nin wearing black cloaks with red clouds, of bounty movements that did not match ordinary mercenary work, of Jinchuriki sightings followed by silence, of rumors from Rain that pointed to a leader no one had seen clearly. Jiraiya's face changed when Naruto named the Rinnegan. He did not interrupt when Naruto said Akatsuki was not merely a criminal group. It was a machine built around the tailed beasts, and its leader was connected to Omegakure. Jiraiya asked where Naruto had learned that. Naruto said the same thing he had said to Itachi years ago. He could not reveal the source. This time the refusal carried less mystery and more exhaustion. Jiraiya studied him, seeing pieces of Minato in the discipline, Kushina in the stubborn line of the mouth, and someone else entirely in the old caution behind his eyes. He had come to take responsibility for a boy. Instead, he found a partner who had been carrying a war map in his head since childhood. They spoke until evening. Jiraiya shared what he could confirm. Akatsuki cells moving through minor countries. Strange disappearances near borders. Whispers of a god ruling rain from behind endless storms. Naruto listened, corrected 2 assumptions, and admitted 1 gap. The changes in Konoha might have shifted the timing. Orochimaru's death had removed 1 wild piece from the board, but it had also left space inside Akatsuki's structure. Dangerous groups did not always weaken when a traitor died. Sometimes, they became cleaner. Far from Konoha, in a cave lit by dim projections and the cold glow of chakra, the remaining members of Akatsuki gathered around the echo of a command. Orochimaru's absence hung over them as fact rather than grief. No one mourned him. Some were pleased. The figure of pain looked across the assembled shadows with the stillness of a statue given voice. The great villages were distracted by suspicion, border disputes, and internal rot. Konoha had fractured its strongest clan and buried the truth beneath politics. The time for waiting had ended. The first target would be the One Tail. After that, the hunts would continue in order, as opportunity allowed. When the 9 Tails was named, the cave seemed to still around the title attached to him in several reports, the Uchiha Jinchuriki. Pain did not linger on the oddity. To Akatsuki, blood, clan, grief, and village politics were only roads leading toward the same end. The order was given, the projections faded, and the world shifted again, while Naruto stood in Konoha, looking at storm clouds gathering beyond the Hokage monument. The order to hunt the Jinchuriki did not reach Konoha as a message. It arrived as missing patrols, burned relay posts, merchants who changed roads without knowing why, and reports from border towns where people had seen black cloaks with red clouds moving through the rain. Jiraiya had spent years chasing rumors that refused to become proof. Naruto listened to those same rumors and heard a clock starting to run. He did not wait for Akatsuki to choose the battlefield. That was the first argument he had with Jiraiya after their meeting near the river. Jiraiya wanted more confirmation, more names, more time to build support inside Konoha. Naruto answered that Konoha had been waiting for the right proof since before Fugaku died, and proof usually arrived with bodies attached. If Akatsuki's leader truly ruled from Amagakure, then they needed to reach him before the organization came for the 9 Tails. Waiting meant letting the enemy decide how many civilians stood between them and Naruto. Jiraiya did not like being led by a 16-year-old, but he liked the logic even less because it was sound. Naruto knew the name Nagato. He knew Konan. He knew Yahiko had once been the heart of their dream. Those names hit Jiraiya harder than any threat. He had buried those children in his mind years ago, or at least buried the hope that they still lived as the children he remembered. Naruto offered no comfort. He only said that if there was even a piece of Jiraiya's students left inside Akatsuki, they had one chance to reach it before the masked man behind them burned the board. They left Konoha under a mission label that said reconnaissance and contained none of the truth. Hiruzen approved it after a long private meeting, his face gray with worry. He wanted to send Anbu, but Naruto refused. Too many people would trigger Rain's defenses, and too many records would give Danzo a path to follow. Hiruzen's hand trembled slightly when he signed the travel order. He knew Naruto was right. He also knew that every time he accepted Naruto's judgment, he was accepting how badly the village had failed to protect the boy from becoming necessary. Danzo learned of the departure within the hour. He had no root agent in Naruto's personal guard anymore, but old systems leaked through old cracks. The report told him Naruto had gone with Jiraiya toward the northwest, likely following Akatsuki intelligence. Danzo did not stop him. A living Naruto inside Konoha was a political obstacle. A captured Naruto outside Konoha could become proof that Hiruzen's softness had placed the village in danger. Danzo sent one coded message through a chain of brokers and missing nin contacts. It did not name Naruto. It only described movement toward Rain, Itachi saw the ripple of that message before it vanished. Root had trained him to read silence, and Danzo's silence changed shape when he had made a move he did not want anyone to see. Itachi could not follow Naruto openly. His cover inside Root was too valuable and too fragile. Instead, he sent a crow with a feather mark hidden under ordinary chakra. The warning reached Naruto on the second night beyond Fire Country. Danzo knows enough. Assume the route is compromised. Naruto burned the message and adjusted their path through flooded lowlands that slowed them but hid their trail from standard pursuit. Rain Country greeted them with gray water and rusted metal. The sky hung low, and every drop that struck Naruto's cloak felt watched. Amagakure was not a village built around nature like Konoha. It rose from pipes, towers, bridges, and steel walls, all of it soaked in endless rain that carried chakra through the air. Jiraiya felt it first, and stopped beneath a broken overpass. The rain was not weather alone, it was a net. Naruto closed his eyes and let a thin thread of Kurama's chakra brush against the falling water. Something brushed back. They entered through an old drainage line Jiraiya remembered from another lifetime. The route had changed, but grief had made him remember details with painful sharpness. Naruto placed seals behind them as they moved, not to block pursuit, but to confuse the pattern of their chakra in the rain. Kurama growled in the back of his mind, irritated by the pressure around them. Naruto accepted the warning this time. He had learned the price of dismissing small unease. Conan found them before Pain did. Paper moved along the tunnel walls like pale moths, folding into wings, eyes, and finally a woman standing above the water with her cloak untouched by the filth around her. Jiraiya said her name softly. For 1 second, the rain sounded louder. Conan looked at him without warmth, but something in her face tightened. Then her gaze shifted to Naruto, and the paper around her sharpened into blades. She said, the Nine Tails had walked willingly into rain. Naruto answered that he had come to speak with Nagato before others used his pain to start a war no one could end. That name brought the first true crack to her composure. She attacked instead of answering. Paper spears filled the tunnel, too many to dodge cleanly. Jiraiya countered with oil that clung to the sheets and made them heavy. Naruto cut lanes through the rest with compressed wind, careful not to burn chakra too quickly in enemy territory. Conan did not fight to kill at once. She fought to measure. When Naruto drove forward, she scattered into paper and reformed behind Jiraiya. When Jiraiya tried to pin her with hair needles, she folded around them like water around stones. The tunnel roof burst open before the fight could settle. A giant bird summon tore through the metal above them, and the first of the 6 paths descended through the rain. Then another appeared on a pipe bridge, and another on the wall, until 6 bodies watched from 6 angles with the same purple eyes. Jiraiya's face hardened. Naruto had warned him, but warning was not the same as seeing dead men move with one will. Pain opened with force. The Ashura path fired a cluster of missiles down the tunnel, turning water into steam and metal into shrapnel. Naruto pulled Jiraiya behind a wind wall, while Kurama's chakra flared across his shoulders in a thin red cloak. The animal path summoned a giant dog that split into more bodies each time Jiraiya struck it. Conan withdrew to higher ground, watching for the moment when one of them overcommitted. The human path came low through the smoke, hand reaching for Naruto's head. Naruto twisted away less than a finger's width and marked the wrist with a seal tag as he passed. They learned under pressure. Jiraiya recognized the shared vision first, noticing that no body reacted to blind angles unless another body had sight. Naruto adjusted the battlefield around that fact. He used clones not to overwhelm, but to block lines of view with smoke, water bursts, and broken sheets of metal. Pain adapted quickly. The Preta path stepped in whenever Naruto built too much chakra into an attack, absorbing wind blades and one half-formed Rasengan. The Naraka path stayed back, guarded. Naruto marked that body as the healer, and passed the thought to Jiraiya with a hand sign. Jiraiya entered Sage mode on a rooftop, while Naruto and 2 shadow clones held the paths below. It was not clean. The Deva path's repulsion shattered one clone and threw Naruto through a rain tank hard enough to crack 2 ribs. Kurama shoved chakra into the wound before Naruto asked, anger burning hot through the seal. Naruto spat blood into the rain and forced himself upright. When the Deva path pulled him forward with invisible force, Naruto used the pull instead of resisting it, spinning into range and driving a wind-coated kunai into the marked human path's shoulder. The seal he had placed earlier triggered, binding the body's movement for 3 seconds. 3 seconds were enough for Jiraiya. He dropped from above with a massive Rasengan formed through Sage Chakra and crushed the human path through the roof beneath them. The body did not rise. Pain's formation shifted. Konan moved to cover the Naraka path, but Jiraiya's Toad Song began before she could stop it. The Genjutsu caught 2 bodies and forced the others to break position to protect the link. Naruto saw the pattern of black receiver rods in their flesh and understood the path to Nagato. The chakra was not only controlling them, it was pointing backward. They did not defeat the 6 paths, so much as tear open enough space to escape them. Naruto released more of Kurama's cloak, accepting the burn along his skin, and drove a shock of red chakra into the rain itself. For one moment, the pattern of Nagato's control lit up in his senses, like wires under the floor. He grabbed Jiraiya and moved. They crossed 3 rooftops, broke through a tower wall, and dropped into a maintenance shaft while Pain's summons crashed behind them. Konan followed, faster than Paper should have moved, but her attacks had changed. She was no longer trying to kill Naruto before he reached the source. She was trying to understand why he knew where to go. Nagato waited in a hidden chamber above the old industrial quarter, thin as a famine victim and bound into a machine that looked more like a punishment than a throne. His red hair hung around a face carved by sickness and will. The Rinnegan stared from sunken eyes with terrible calm. For a moment, Jiraiya could not speak. The boy he remembered had become something the world had hurt into a weapon. Naruto stepped forward before pity could waste the opening. He did not beg Nagato to forgive the world. That would have been an insult. He spoke instead of Yahiko's dream, of a reign that did not have to survive forever as a battlefield between larger nations. He spoke of the masked man who had guided grief into a plan that required every Jinchuriki to be chained to a statue. He spoke of the Eye of the Moon as a lie dressed as salvation, a prison that would make peace by stealing choice from every living person. Nagato listened because Naruto knew details he should not know. Konan listened because Naruto did not speak like a Konoha shinobi defending Konoha's innocence. Nagato asked whether Naruto had come to lecture him about pain. Naruto looked at the machines feeding chakra into a dying body and answered that he had no right to measure Nagato's suffering. Konoha had failed Rain many times. The great villages had treated smaller countries as roads, shields, and graves. None of that made Obito trustworthy. None of that made Akatsuki's path Yahiko's path. If Yahiko had wanted a world where children stopped crying under foreign wars, then feeding children to a statue and calling it balance was not his dream. It was someone else's hunger, wearing his name. Jiraiya finally spoke, and his voice was rough in a way Naruto had never heard before. He apologized for leaving them in a world that had no mercy ready for them. He did not ask Nagato to become the boy he had taught. He asked him to make one choice that belonged to him, not to Hanzo, not to Konoha, and not to the masked man who had been waiting behind their tragedy. Konan's paper lowered around her hands. Nagato's gaze moved from Jiraiya to Naruto and stayed there. The decision did not come with tears or speeches. Nagato closed his eyes, and the 6 paths across the village stopped moving. The pressure in the rain softened. He said the hunt would end. Akatsuki would fracture, and some members would not obey. But the Rinnegan would no longer lead them toward the tailed beasts. Naruto felt the weight in the room shift. It was not peace. It was a door opening in a burning house. Obito stepped through that door. Space twisted beside Nagato's machine, and a masked figure emerged, with a black rod already in his hand. Konan moved first, paper exploding toward him from every wall, but he passed through it. Jiraiya threw a needle storm. Naruto lunged with Kurama's chakra tearing across his arms. Obito ignored them all for the half second he needed. The rod drove into Nagato's back and through his chest. pinning him to the machine. Konan screamed his name. Nagato's eyes widened, not in surprise that betrayal existed, but in the final pain of recognizing the hand that had waited for weakness. Obito leaned close and called him a broken pawn. Then he tore one Rinnegan from Nagato's face with clinical speed. Konan's paper wrapped the body before he could take the other. A black flame seal on his glove burned through the socket and ruined what he could not claim. Naruto reached him a heartbeat later, claws of red chakra cutting through the mask's edge. But Obito slipped into Kamui with blood on his hand and one stolen eye hidden behind the spiral. Since Nagato had failed, he would do the work himself. Since Naruto had stolen Akatsuki's god, he would answer by turning Konoha into an altar for the Nine Tails. The space folded inward, and he vanished. The chamber filled with the sound of rain against metal. Nagato died before Jiraiya could reach him. Konan held the body in a storm of paper so tight that no one could see her face. They did not have time to mourn properly. Obito's threat changed the world faster than any message could travel. Konan burned Nagato's remaining body herself, saving only what could not be used by enemies. She gave Jiraiya the locations of Akatsuki caches, safe houses, and likely targets. She only said that if the masked man came for Naruto, she would stand against him. Naruto accepted because grief had made many people dangerous in his life, and Konan's grief now had a direction. The five Kage never gathered. There was no clean warning, no public proof, and no leader trusted enough to call all villages into the same room. Kumo suspected Konoha was hiding weakness. Iwa suspected Kumo would use any crisis to move troops. Suna tightened around Gaara after a failed Akatsuki probe near the desert border, while Killer Bee disappeared deeper into cloud protection. Smaller Jinchuriki were not so lucky. Obito used the remaining Akatsuki like blades thrown in different directions. Kakuzu bought information with money and corpses. Other names vanished from bingo books before villages admitted they were missing. Konoha prepared, but preparation inside a poisoned house is never simple. Hiruzen reinforced the walls, recalled veterans, and placed Naruto under command protection that looked almost like a cage again. Danzo supported every visible defense, while quietly mapping which units remained loyal to the Hokage. He had finally accepted that Hiruzen's Konoha would never become his Konoha through persuasion. Obito offered him an uglier road. The masked man wanted Naruto. Danzo wanted the village stripped of soft leadership, Uchiha influence, and old loyalties. Each man believed he would betray the other later. Itachi discovered the shape of the bargain in fragments. A route patrol redirected away from the eastern wall. A coded order to leave one evacuation tunnel unsealed. A list of Anbu captains marked as acceptable losses. He sent warnings where he could, but Danzo had learned from years of being watched. By the time Itachi confirmed enough to act openly, the attack had already begun. Konoha burned under a moonless sky. The first explosion tore through the eastern storage district, where emergency supplies should have supported a siege. The second struck the communication tower. Summoned creatures crashed against the outer wall, not in the endless numbers pain would have brought, but with enough force to scatter defenders. Kisame turned one street into a moving river and dragged Shinobi under, with Samehada's grin flashing through the foam. Kakuzu ripped through a squad near the market, his mask spitting fire and wind into houses that had already emptied too slowly. Naruto met the first wave at the central avenue, with Kurama's cloak burning around him. He did not waste chakra trying to look human. Civilians were still running, and image mattered less than speed. He crushed a summoned beast into the street with a chakra arm, then used wind to split Kisame's water surge before it reached the hospital road. Konan's paper wings swept over the rooftops, carrying explosive tags into enemy blind spots, and lifting trapped children from collapsing balconies. Jiraiya fought near the western gate, holding back a second breach with toad summons and sage-enhanced fire. Kakashi Hatake reached Naruto when the first space distortion opened above the Hokage residence. In this timeline, Kakashi had never led Team 7, because that team had never existed. He had still taught Sasuke lightning control during Academy special drills, still watched Naruto from the edge of Anbu reports, and still carried the eye Obito had given him into every battle, like a debt that never stopped collecting interest. When he saw the masked man step from the distortion with one Rinnegan and one Sharingan, Kakashi understood before anyone said the name. Obito moved like a man who no longer cared how much damage exposed him. The stolen Rinnegan strained his body, but it gave him enough power to throw chakra rods into the ground and disrupt defensive formations. His Kamui made him untouchable whenever Naruto struck directly. Naruto's speed forced him to phase again and again, but each failed hit taught Obito the rhythm of the Nine Tails cloak. Conan tried to trap him in layers of paper bombs, only for him to slip through the blast and emerge behind her. Kakashi pulled her out of range with a partial Kamui that left blood running from his own eye. The fight narrowed around 3 people and 1 secret. Naruto pressured Obito with raw speed and strength. Conan denied him safe space with paper fields that forced him to choose where to materialize. Kakashi watched. He did not chase every movement. He measured the timing of disappearance, reappearance, the angle of Obito's shoulders when attacks passed through him, and the way his own Kamui reacted like a mirror held near another mirror. The truth came together under fire. The space Obito used was the same space Kakashi touched. Obito sensed the danger in Kakashi's stillness and attacked him first. Naruto blocked with a chakra arm, taking 3 black rods through the forearm. The rods disrupted Kurama's chakra and sent pain white-hot up his shoulder. Kurama snarled and flooded more power into him, but Naruto held the cloak below the point where rage would take command. He had not survived Danzo, Orochimaru, and the Broken Future, only to become the beast his enemies described. Kakashi chose his moment when Obito opened to strike Naruto's chest. The masked man had to become solid to drive the rod home. Kakashi's own Kamui twisted the space at exactly the same instant, dragging the edge of Obito's body out of phase just enough to ruin the attack. He moved with a plain kunai, not a grand jutsu, because grand jutsu would be too slow. For the first time that night, Obito's defense failed completely. Kakashi stepped inside the opening and aimed for the throat. The blade never reached. A wind-coated sword pierced Kakashi from behind, sliding through his chest with a sound too small for the damage it did. His fingers opened, and the kunai fell. Naruto turned and saw Danzo standing behind him, bandaged arm exposed beneath a torn sleeve, one stolen Sharingan already closing in the flesh. The old man pulled the blade free, and Kakashi dropped to one knee, blood spilling between his fingers. For a second, the battle around them seemed to lose sound. Kakashi looked more surprised by the identity of the attacker than by the wound itself. Danzo stepped past him and told Hiruzen's defenders, those still close enough to hear, that weakness had invited ruin. Akatsuki would take the Nine Tails, the old guard would die, and from the ashes a disciplined Konoha would rise, under a hand willing to do what mercy had always prevented. He spoke as if treason became duty when the traitor used the right words. Naruto caught Kakashi before he hit the ground. The copy ninja's breath came wet and uneven. His Sharingan eye fixed on Naruto with effort, then shifted toward Obito. He forced out the clue Naruto needed, the same space. Kakashi's hand tightened once around Naruto's sleeve, leaving blood on the dark cloth. And then, the strength went out of him. The man who had carried Obito's gift for half his life died between the boy Obito wanted to capture and the village Danzo had sold. Danzo and Obito moved to finish what Kakashi had interrupted. Danzo trusted Izanagi, root conditioning, and the chaos around them. Obito trusted Kamui and the stolen Rinnegan. Both men had miscalculated the same thing. They believed Naruto's family remained scattered because exile had made them weak. They did not understand that exile had only made them harder to see coming. Black flame tore across the street between Naruto and Danzo. The heat bent the air, and Danzo stepped back with a curse as one of his stolen Sharingan closed to erase the damage. Sasuke Uchiha landed on the broken wall of a nearby building, older than the boy who had left Konoha, and colder than any rumor had captured. Shisui appeared beside him in a flicker, blade already drawn. A third figure stepped from the smoke behind Danzo, wearing torn root armor and the eyes of a man done pretending. Itachi had come home. Sasuke saw Kakashi's body first. Then he saw Danzo's exposed arm. Whatever restraint Shisui had spent years teaching him cracked under the weight of those two sights. The skeletal shape of Susanoo rose around him, purple chakra ribbing the street in violent arcs. Danzo tried to turn the moment into another speech about unstable Uchiha. Sasuke did not let him finish. An arrow of chakra drove Danzo through a wall hard enough to break stone. Danzo survived because Izanagi stole death from the world and spent another eye to do it. He reappeared behind Sasuke with a wind blade ready for the spine. Shisui intercepted him, not with strength, but with timing. His genjutsu did not try to control Danzo completely. Danzo had prepared too many defenses for that. Shisui bent the old man's sense of distance by half a step. Danzo's blade missed Sasuke's heart and cut only the edge of Susanoo's cloak. Sasuke turned, and black flame took Danzo's shoulder. The fight against Danzo was ugly because Danzo had built his life around surviving better men. He used seals under the street, root agents as shields, stolen eyes as extra lives, and wind jutsu sharp enough to cut through chakra constructs when Sasuke grew careless. Shisui kept him from escaping. Sasuke kept him from breathing. Each time Danzo rewrote death, Itachi counted the closing eyes from the edge of the battlefield, while holding off root reinforcements that had finally realized their master was exposed. Danzo's last Izanagi ended with him trapped between Shisui's blade and Sasuke's fully formed Susanoo arm. He tried to activate a sealing technique meant to drag Sasuke down with him. Naruto saw the chakra gather and threw a wind blade that cut the seal pattern across Danzo's chest before it completed. Sasuke did the rest. He drove Susanoo's hand through Danzo and pinned him against the shattered stone beneath the Hokage monument. Danzo died, staring not at Konoha, but at the Uchiha he had failed to erase. Obito tried to leave when Danzo fell. That confirmed what Naruto already knew. The alliance had been convenience, not loyalty. Konan blocked the upper route with a storm of paper tags. Itachi met Obito's eye for the first time that night and forced him to phase before a genjutsu could settle. Naruto moved into the gap with Kakashi's clue burning through his grief. The same space. He did not need to overpower Kamui. He needed to make Obito use it when there was nowhere safe to return. They turned the battlefield into a trap. Konan filled the real world with layered paper bombs, leaving narrow lanes that looked like openings. Itachi filled those lanes with genjutsu triggers tied to crows and reflected firelight. Naruto attacked through the center, forcing Obito to phase under constant pressure. Each time Obito slipped away, Naruto counted the breath before he could strike again. Each time he returned, Itachi cut another option from his vision. The stolen Rinnegan gave Obito power, but it also dragged at him. Blood leaked beneath the mask, where the eye strained flesh not born to hold it. Obito caught Naruto once with a chakra rod through the side, and tried to pull him into Kamui. Kurama roared, and for the first time in the battle, the fox did not fight Naruto's control. He anchored him. Red chakra arms drove into the broken street like roots, while Naruto grabbed Obito's wrist with both hands and held him solid for the fraction of a second Itachi needed. Amaterasu bloomed along Obito's sleeve. He phased on instinct, carrying the black flame into his own dimension. That was the mistake Kakashi had died to reveal. Naruto drove a marked kunai through the distortion at the exact point where Obito vanished, using Kurama's chakra to force the seal to cling across space. Obito reappeared 3 steps away, with the mark burning on his shoulder. Konan's paper folded around that mark. Itachi's genjutsu struck through his uncovered eye, and Naruto hit him with a Rasengan fed by wind and Nine-Tails chakra. The attack did not erase him in a flash. It broke ribs, tore the mask away, and drove him into the crater where Danzo had fallen. For one moment, Obito's real face looked up at the ruins of Konoha. Kakashi's age sat strangely on him, as if the boy who had died under a rock and the man who had destroyed lives had never properly become one person. Naruto gave him no speech about redemption. There were too many dead around them for that mercy to be clean. Obito reached for Kamui again. Itachi's blade pierced his hand. Konan's paper bound his limbs. Naruto's final strike crushed the stolen Rinnegan before it could open another path, and stopped Obito's heart under his palm. The battle did not end at once. Fires still burned. Kisame retreated after Samehada recoiled from a direct wash of Kurama's chakra, and Jiraiya's sage oil set the water around him alight. Kakuzu died near the market when Konan's tags destroyed 2 hearts, and Shisui cut down the remaining masks before they could scatter. Root cells surrendered, fled, or fought until Anbu, loyal to Hiruzen, dragged them into the open. By dawn, Konoha was alive, but the village looked as if a giant hand had closed around it and squeezed. Naruto did not rest. He remembered one enemy who survived by letting others believe the final battle belonged to louder monsters. Black Zetsu had watched history from the soil and shadows. If Obito died and Zetsu escaped, the future could rot again from one hidden root. Naruto found him near the broken foundations beneath an old shrine, a black shape sliding through stone with a patience older than any village. Zetsu began to speak, perhaps to bargain, perhaps to plant doubt. Naruto gave him no time. Itachi understood before anyone else did. Susanoo formed around him, worn by exhaustion but still precise, and the Totsuka blade pierced the black mass as it tried to split away. Zetsu twisted, shrieking words about destiny, mother, and the will behind the moon. Naruto answered with Kurama's chakra, not as a wild blaze, but as controlled, grinding heat that burned every fragment trying to escape the seal. Shisui swept the ground with genjutsu-enhanced perception. Konan sealed the ash in paper. Jiraiya destroyed the paper with sage fire. Nothing crawled out. Only then did Naruto allow himself to kneel beside Kakashi. Dawn light touched the broken street. It made the blood look darker. Hiruzen arrived with 2 Anbu, moving like a man whose bones had become heavier overnight. He saw Danzo's body, Obito's body, the exposed root agents, and Kakashi covered by Naruto's cloak. No speech came to him. Perhaps there was no speech large enough for a village that had nearly been sold by one of its own elders. The funerals lasted for days. Kakashi's name was carved with honors that felt too late. Civilians left flowers near the place where he had fallen, though many had never known how much of their lives had depended on a tired man with one borrowed eye. Hiruzen publicly dissolved Root, opened investigations into Danzo's operations, and confessed enough of the truth to make silence impossible. He did not confess everything. Some secrets would have set the village on fire all over again. Naruto hated that, and understood it, which made the hatred harder to carry. Sasuke did not stay for the ceremonies longer than he had to. He stood beside Naruto at Kakashi's memorial, his face closed and his Mangekyo hidden. Mikoto came under Shisui's protection. Older than Naruto remembered her, and still steady in the way that had held their family together when men with titles tried to tear it apart. She embraced Naruto in the quiet behind the shrine. This time, he did not pretend he was fine. He held her like the child he had once been in her arms, and the grown soldier he had become, because that childhood had never been allowed to last. The surviving Uchiha did not return to Konoha as a clan. Some individuals stayed. Some root recruits, freed from Danzo's grip, begged for a place among relatives who did not know whether to forgive them. The exiled corps under Mikoto, Sasuke, and Shisui chose independence. They had saved the village that had failed them. But saving a house did not mean agreeing to live inside it again. Hiruzen offered restored land, public apology, and political guarantees. Mikoto thanked him and refused. Beyond Fire Country, the news traveled faster than repair crews could work. Konoha had survived Akatsuki, but survival looked like weakness from a distance. The eastern wall was broken. Root's treason had exposed internal decay. Kakashi Hatake was dead. Danzo Shimura was dead by Uchiha hands. The Nine-Tails Jinchuriki remained in the village, but every hidden village now knew how close he had come to being taken. Kumo moved troops toward contested passes. Iwa strengthened supply roads near the border. Suna held back because of Gaara, but even allies counted losses before offering help. There was no Fourth Shinobi World War, as Naruto remembered it. No grand alliance stood shoulder to shoulder under one banner. Madara did not rise. Kaguya did not return. The moon remained only the moon. Yet the world did not become kind because the oldest trap had been destroyed. It became uncertain. Smaller conflicts sparked where fear met opportunity. Missing nin groups tried to claim Akatsuki's abandoned networks. Daimyo courts whispered about whether shinobi villages had become too dangerous to trust. Peace had been saved from one nightmare and delivered into politics with knives under the table. Naruto stood on the ruins of the Hokage office 3 weeks after the attack, looking over a village patched with scaffolds, smoke stains, and stubborn movement. Builders carried beams through streets where shinobi had died. Children watched from doorways as Anbu dragged root records into daylight. Jiraiya stood behind him, silent for once. Itachi waited in the shade below, free of root and already marked by years that would not give back what they had taken. Farther away, Sasuke and Shisui prepared to escort Mikoto beyond the gates before sunset. Kurama stirred inside him. The fox said the world was still cracked. Naruto looked at the village, then at the road where his family would leave again, and answered that cracked things could still be held together if enough hands refused to let go. He no longer believed in easy peace. He no longer believed that knowing the future meant owning it. He had saved the Uchiha from massacre, lost Fugaku to the future's revenge, saved the world from Obito's lie, and watched Konoha bleed from wounds it had made in itself. Ahead lay years of negotiations, border wars, reforms, and enemies who would not wear masks, as honest as Obito's. When the sun lowered behind the Hokage monument, Naruto climbed down from the broken roof and walked toward the gates. He would say goodbye to Mikoto, Sasuke, and Shisui properly this time. Then he would return to the village, face the council, and begin the slower battle that came after survival. The world had not been healed. It had been kept alive. For now, that was enough work for one lifetime.